Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network, the only podcast, and I cannot stress this enough, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. That's what we are here at Disguise Coverage. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. It's an important week this week. We've got Bills Patriots on the docket, and there's AFC East implications. There's number one seed implications for the New England Patriots. There's playoff implications in general for the Buffalo Bills. We've got a lot to talk about, and because of that, and because of how important this game was or is, and how important this week is, I wanted to bring somebody back to the show who I believe is one of the best. I also think it's really good to butter up a guest right before you bring him on, so I figured I would do that. He is one of the best in the business. I mentioned it the last time he was on the show. He came on back after the Bills lost to the Titans, and we talked about the state of the Buffalo Bills at the bye week, but it's a little bit of a different team since then. But without further ado, welcome to the show again for the second time, Mr. Nate Tice of the Athletic Football Show and the Silent Count Substack, which I think is a phenomenal name. Like, well done, very clever, and also some draft prospect stuff for Bleacher Report. I believe you're like everywhere now.
Oh, I know. The life of a freelancer, and it's been good though. It's like now doing the college reports has been kind of a I've gotten so used to the warm water of the NFL season. It's like, oh God, I gotta get used to this. Like now I gotta go watch a college film. And it's like today I watched somebody from the Sun Belt from South Alabama. And I was like, I've been spoiled. It's like, I'm never complaining about bad offensive line play again in the NFL. I kind of like it's very jarring when you watch some bad teams go at it.
Yeah.
And but no, it's been good. I appreciate you, like you did last time, putting me over. And I appreciate the Blueberries casino reference. That is, it's near and dear to my heart, being a Vegas resident now. And actually, yeah, like we said, we talked about before, is prefer casino over Goodfellas. And actually, it's very funny is that time we had a little Twitter thread. It kind of blew up, actually.
It legitimately did. There were so many people coming in from different things, like commenting, giving their list, their thoughts. It
was great. I know. And I love that, especially Scorsese movies. And it's funny is like literally the next day, because I think that was late at night for me. And then like the next day I was looking at it, my brother-in-law, because we're going up to Washington to visit my parents this weekend for Christmas. And my brother-in-law was like, man, we should just watch some old school movies. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And he goes, I'm going to nominate Casino. And he was not saying that because of a Twitter thread or anything. He just randomly said it. And I was like, all right, the universe is telling me to watch this movie right now. So that's perfect. It's on my mind.
It's fate. I love it, dude. Like I've said it before, and in putting you over, you are genuinely like one of my favorite people for football content. Just like also like everything you mix in. Obviously, like you're a wrestling guy, that's awesome, and you like board games. There's so many cool things. But when you commented on my casino thought and felt the same way as I do about Casino, I was like, my previous favorite thing about you was Midge. Now it's you because you like Casino just as much as I do. And when I always like to put random little things in the intro. And I was like, oh, I'm going to say that about the Blueberries. And I was like, he's got to pick up on it. Like, and as I was saying it, I was looking to see if you'd pick up on it. Like, this is a good time, man. This is a good time. You know what? Forget Bills, Pats. It's not important. Let's talk favorite casino moments in the movie, best character, how much Pesci deserved what he gets in the end.
Yes, I know.
But I always feel bad for him. Especially when they make him watch like his brother. I feel so bad, but I'm also like, you're scum. But also,
and actually, how he says it, he's like, no, like when as he's getting like held back, like just the pitch he hits with that. That
and he's asking Frankie, he's like, no, like just kill him, like don't let him suffer anymore, please. And like Nikki's looking at, and but that also makes me upset too. Like Frankie's been like his henchman the whole time, lying to the bosses, doing all his bidding, and then now you're gonna like whack Nikki and his brother and do like him dirty, like you deserve. Oh, there's so many emotions.
I played at that the country club where the plane lands. Yes. And the plane's still there. The original plane.
No way.
Still in the little like pond area. Yeah. And it's like it's actually what that one is. And it's like it's just sitting there. They like couldn't take it out. Yeah. And I think it's just called the Las Vegas Country Club. It's a public course you can go to now. It's like smack dab. Old school of Vegas, just like because now everything's cookie cutter out here in like the suburbs of Vegas, but it's like those old school houses and stuff like that. It's like I could see some mobsters living at these houses, like, like a lot of Tonys and Frankies out here. And honestly, that's one cool thing about Vegas is that you're on the West Coast, but it has some East Coast vibe to it. It has a lot of Chicago vibe to it too, which yeah, and kind of has that just feel to it sometimes when you go to certain areas, but as it's expanded, like rings on a tree, it gets bigger, like new rings and stuff like that. I would say one of my favorite scenes in that movie, other than the Vice scene when he's like,
"Oh,
you're not telling me for that."
Yeah,
but it's and
you made me pop your eye out for. Oh God, so good. Sorry, go ahead.
It's how he gets. It's how they get busted when the guy's listening in, and it's just a guy at the grocery store with his mom and stuff like that. He's complaining, and it's like that. It just kills me. Yeah, because he's swearing and stuff, and his mom's like, like just, and it's like such an old school mom thing. It's like my grandmother used to be, and so I love those little touches. Like it's like, oh yeah, you get this, this world.
Those little moments that make it more real and more believable and more unique. Yes. It's such a good movie, and I feel like people don't. You get the Goodfellas, and you get the Godfathers, and I feel like I guess based on how that thread blew up when everybody was saying Casino is up there for some people, but I really feel like it's not. Like in my real life conversations with people, I very rarely hear someone be like, well, Casino is awesome, or say anything about it. A lot of people actually, I'll be like, well, you ever seen Casino? And they're like, no, never heard of it. And I'm just like,
yeah, exactly. I know. And everyone could quote Goodfellas and stuff. I saw Casino first. My dad went on I don't know what it was, but I was probably about 12 to 12, 13 years old. It was like every Saturday we would stay up late and watch like a bunch of movies. So we watched like Cool Hand Luke and all these old school movies. Yeah. And we watched Casino, and then I didn't see Goodfellas until a couple years after that. And when I first was talking to my now wife, who's from Vegas, and her dad has lived here his whole life, all that. And we were talking, and then I was like, oh, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Casino. She goes, actually, when I was 7 years old, my dad showed me Casino, and then I brought it up to them because the mom's they don't swear. Her mom doesn't swear or anything. Okay. And I go, oh yeah, so Lauren see Casino, and the dad looked at me like you weren't supposed to. Well, you weren't supposed to tell that story. That was secret. And he goes, it was research. It was history. Funny. It was a history lesson. And I was like, assignment. That's awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. But I was like, that's like one of those things. I was like, oh, you've seen Casino? And she's like, yeah, when I was 7.
Awesome.
Like, perfect.
That's what you were like. Yeah, we are meant to be together. I know this is going to work now. I'm fully. I was already good, but now I'm fully solidified in this union. Like we are one. This is who we are. Yep. Oh man, I feel like we've gone horribly off track. Last time, it was wrestling. Could have gone. I was going to do another wrestling question for you now, but I feel like actually I'm going to ask a quick favorite tag team of all time.
Oh man,
it's a hard one for me too. I'll tell you mine while you think. I'm close. It's between the Legion of Doom and the Dudley Boys. As an ECW kid growing up, and especially being little, like anytime, like in school, someone would be at their locker and their back is turned, and you and one of your boys just sneak up behind him. You wait for him to turn around, and then boom, hit him with a 3D. I like
the Dudley Boys. That's a great answer. I actually think it would be Edge and Christian, but I was a big mark for them when they were in the Brood.
Oh, dude, and that song is a banger. So dope. They come out with the Gangrel is sick. My God.
Came up from the bottom.
Yes, just chilling with the cup of blood, like vibing and smiling with their sunglasses.
And then when NWO started the Outsiders, like I really like them, if that counts. Like, but yeah, I would say the Brood. I would say the Brood, Edge and Christian version was up there, but it was actually kind of cool. Like when they started becoming I don't know, comedy heels, I guess is a good way to put it. And then it was like the Hardy Boys were like the new Brood. And it was like, okay, and then they did their own thing too. It's like poor Gangrel was just like
left in the dust.
Yeah, just left in the dust. I guess I'm just hanging out here.
That's exactly it. Like, I guess you guys will go and be stars now. I'm just gonna go, I guess, not be important anymore. Yeah, but the Brood is super underrated. Theme song is underrated. The look, the attitude.
Yep.
You got great answers when it comes to wrestling and taste in movies. But despite the fact, of course, despite the fact that we've gone on now about 9 minutes about non-football stuff, you are tremendous in the football area of things, I guess. Like you might know a couple things about like football. And let's dive into it. Bills Patriots, hugely important game. So much to break down from an overall season perspective, but also with what happened a couple weeks ago in week 13. But then there's so many variables with that, with the weather and all of that. We're going to get into several pieces for both sides of the ball for both teams. But I want to start off with something in regards to the Bills offense. You know, you had mentioned this on one of the episodes with Robert Mays on The Athletic several weeks ago. Like the Bills fully this offseason really leaned into the whole, like, okay, we're a passing team. We're a spread team. Like, that's who we are. And I think that's fine. I mean, you got like a young stud quarterback. He finished second in the MVP voting. You've got Stephon Diggs. You add Emmanuel Sanders. You've still got Beasley. You've got a young Gabriel Davis. Dawson Knox in the offseason was the hope that he could be something. He's risen in his play this year. But I think a lot of fans saw what the Bills did last year. And then coming into this year, we're like, let's just do that more. Like a lot of fans, and I speak from experience with this, so many in episodes that I was doing it on Twitter, because I believe you need to run the ball. And I'm saying 50-50, but there's got to be some threat of it. But so many Bills fans wanted, screw it. No, run it twice if you need to. Pass it 50, pass it 55. Every time the Bills would run it, why are we running? What are we doing? Throw the ball. But so let's lead with that, because defenses have played the Bills and the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs have turned it up a little bit in several areas, but the Bills and Chiefs are really similar in terms of why they were struggling offensively in the year and coverages and looks that they were seeing. So let's lead with that. Talk about, from an offensive perspective, you're so knowledgeable in the game, but especially on that offensive side, with your background and your pedigree, talk about how important it is for an offense to have a pivot, whether you're a running team, but you can pivot to the pass or vice versa. And then we'll talk about how important it is for a quarterback to be able to have some semblance of the running game as well.
Yeah, a lot of it too is maybe the limitations of the formations used, and that's where having and I feel this will happen with the Chiefs, and really some of their improvement, besides Mahomes just being Mahomes, is that they started using their tight ends more and just using Kelsey as truly a jumbo slot, a power slot type, and just going, hey, we're in 12 personnel, but we're going to have Blake Bell locked into the formation. Because when you get into formations where you're spread, like Dawson Knox, like in a sniffer, like just off ball, you only can get a certain amount of runs. Like it's you limit the rock, paper, scissors that defenses have to play against. And so that's kind of where the limitations comes. It's not like, the limitations that they're a finesse team that they can't run the ball, all that. It's more like, well, what can we get to? We only get to zone, we get to split zone, maybe, but it's hard to get to a power. It's hard to get to a duo run, a pin pull, anything like that. And even with the Chiefs, they've tweaked a little. What's frustrating for me sometimes is Andy Reid just wants to only run zone. And when it's hard, it turns into nothing but one-on-one blocks for your offensive line, which is great if you're the Bucks or, if
with
you have
an amazing line.
Even the Colts, like a dominant or a very good offensive line. And when it turns into nothing but one-on-one blocks, it's, one guy loses. And if the running back doesn't make a miss or doesn't have the speed to bounce it, then it's a blown up play. It's 2nd and 10 now, or 2nd and 12, or 2nd and 8, or, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 6. Like you're just not getting those just kind of chip away plays. You're just making it a little harder on yourself.
Which was happening to the Bills a lot this year. Everything was just like hard for them. Even when they were succeeding in scoring, it was still like they had to drag blood from a stone at different points.
And yeah, exactly. And honestly, when you're not creating those explosive plays just with your running, it's more just creation from Josh Allen out of structure or anything, is that you can't get to those changeups as much as you want because everything is siloed. It's like, okay, here's the fullback. Well, we know it's a run. Okay, here's this personnel. We know it's this. It's this formation. This is coming. And fine for a couple of weeks or you're going against a bad team, but good teams are going to look at your resume and look at the more film you put out there, the more they're going to go, well, if they do this, we're going to do this. The Cardinals are hitting that a little bit right now, is that when they're in a certain formation, it's like, okay, here comes mesh. They're doing this.
Oh yeah, you did the breakdown of what the Lions did on Sunday against them, and the Cardinals usually I believe they like to normally just like slide with it, but they mugged up the line, dropped guys out, had a free rusher coming, even though they only rushed at 4, I believe, down on Kyler because they knew the mesh was coming. They had it scouted. You're done if a team knows what's coming like that.
And that's the thing is like, okay, the first answer the offense has is, oh, we'll just throw the crosser. He's hot. Okay, cool. That's the first answer. Or Kyler, go be Kyler.
Go be Kyler.
Yeah. But and then what the smart thing the Lions did, and actually it's a Patriots really like this pressure as well, and the Dolphins run it too, is they drop the guys out to the hot throwing lanes. And you can tell the Cardinals had no answer for that. They're like, well, this works. When we just played the Bears 2 weeks ago, this worked like 5 times.
We do it all the time. What's going on?
Exactly. And so when you don't have the answer to their answer, that's when it's like everything can feel tight. And I would say too is with some of this, they're spread. I think we might get in a sec, but it was like with the RPO stuff,
Yeah.
is sometimes some of those RPOs can be, it's really a run play with packaged. It's an R and then the PO is that
big R,
and,
little P.
Yes, exactly. But with the Bills is sometimes it can be, hey, that's my read, and the slants there, the flats there, or whatever, the stick routes there, and sometimes you have to like almost tell the quarterback, hey, it's like, yes, that is the correct read, but that's a good run look as well. And I saw that happen against the Bills and the Bucks in the second half. Was there was looks that I was like, oh, that's usually a throw for Josh Allen, but I promised that at halftime. They're like, hey, we know that's a good throw look. Hand it off. Just hand it off. And not that Josh Allen was wrong. It's just that, like, hey, we have two good answers. Let's take the other answer than the initial one. And I think that's why you saw a couple of those runs pop at the beginning of the second half, because they're like, just hand it off. Those are good. We're fine. And that's, again, not any Josh Allen's fault. This is how he was taught. It worked for them. But now it's like, now you got to get to your secondary answers, your third answers, your fourth answers. And yeah, so it's a long-winded way to kind of just say, like, yeah, it's every formation or every play has a strength and a weakness. And when you lean so much into one way, it's being spread, having the tight end off ball, just kind of, we're only going to be an 11 personnel or 0 personnel with 5 receivers. Defenses are smart. They get paid money too. And they just start going, okay, well, they're in 5 receivers. They ain't running the ball. Like, even if you do sprinkle it in, it's just like, it's always rock, paper, scissors. And if you take away paper and scissors, then it's like, okay, well, here comes rock. So it's just kick their ass up. And that it just makes it harder on yourself.
I love that rock, paper, scissors analogy. It's just such a great way to show how you need to have that multiplicity and that versatility up front. You cannot stay stagnant, even if your fastball is awesome.
Yeah.
I meant to do it. I wanted to use Mariano Rivera's cutter as an example, and I ended up forgetting before we did it. But like, even like the best pitcher, right, who goes fastball all day, they mix in some sort of other pitch, whether it's a curve or a slider or a changeup. You have to throw off speed at some point, or change the location of your fastball. No one's just being like, well, all I'm doing is throwing 90. Yep, that's it. That's it. That's all I throw. Okay, well, what else do you throw? Nothing else. I just go up and in. Exactly. Well, that's not going to work. Exactly. And even guys who have like a known pitch, like Mariano Rivera, it's easier because the sample size is smaller, because he's only pitching like the 9th inning usually.
Yep.
He's working that cutter, but he's also throwing like other pitches. So even a pitcher who's known for one pitch, you still got to layer in something. You still have to mix in something. And that's a terrific analogy for football, as is your rock, paper, scissors analogy. And then when it comes to a quarterback, passing offense or not, how important is some semblance of a running game to a quarterback, whether a veteran quarterback, younger quarterback? Is it something that like makes things easier for you? Is it a necessity for a quarterback to kind of grow and make things easier for them, like throughout games and throughout the season? Or is it just, we just need to do this to keep teams honest and, make them respect it?
A little both. Like, yeah, making them honest, and also just taking some weight off of them, taking some mental energy away from them. And so it's just almost like I mean, you can play Madden sometimes, or any, like this, just using a video game thing. Like, like even there, they have stamina with guys. And now just think of mental stamina with guys. It's like, man, every play I have to be right. Like, I have to be right for 50 plays in a row. Like, it's tough. Even the best of the best just want to take a break sometimes and hand the ball off. And also just making the opportunities easier. So it's 2nd and 4 as opposed to 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 10.
Yeah, putting yourself in those advantageous situations for your offense to make it easier to keep going.
Yep, stay ahead of the sticks, because then it's not, okay, well, I have to take the check down here. Well, it's a first down now, as opposed to I take the check down. Now we got another 3rd down. All right, what pressure's coming? Okay, we got to point this out. You're just taking that weight off of them, and especially younger guys, that helps so much, or guys that are trying to grow, like Josh Allen has. Like, just, hey, it's now he doesn't have to be perfect every play. Now it's not like him being a hero every play. Like, even the heroes have help, like they do.
That's true.
And
Batman has Alfred. He gets help. That's fine. Yes, Robin sometimes too.
Exactly. Even Batgirl.
She helps.
Yeah. They all help, and that's exactly it. It's they need help sometimes, even if they want to be heroes. And yes, you want to say, well, let's put the ball in their hands all the time. I think another good way to use it, I've been honing in on this analogy, is like playing an RPG or a video game. It's like, I want to spam my best move over and over.
Yeah.
But not every time is it super effective. It's sometimes it goes like if you play Pokemon, sometimes it's like, oh man, that should have worked. Like, but it didn't work on that. Like that's kind of what it is. It's you want to spam your A button all the time, but once in a while I have to hit B and sometimes I have to hit X, even if it's not my best attribute I have, just throw it in there because maybe the defense or the other opponent is not expecting that. And that helps a lot.
I think that one, that's spot on. And two, I feel like you guys had something earlier that I thought was important as well. Like the fact that the team that you're playing is also like professional football players and they're also trying to like win, like they're also correcting. And I feel like a lot of Bills fans came into this season thinking like, okay, Josh Allen's arrived. The offense has arrived, to the moon, Alice. We're going to be sweet. Well, I guess I forget what show that's from, but he doesn't say to the moon, Alice in like a good way. But anyway, and I feel like
it's a Disco Stew meme.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Just it's forever going upwards,
and no one really stopped to think. They just thought, okay, like forever upwards, here we go. And nobody stopped to think of like, well, now there's all this tape from this past season. So like, what do you do when teams aren't swinging at the high and inside fastball anymore and they're not chasing and they make you have to paint on the outside or they make you have to throw off speed? And I don't want to say it's arrogance because I think it was more excitement from fans that just saw it and was like, no, we've got this quarterback and we've got this stud. Let's ride him. Let's go. And that's it. And they didn't think about all those adjustments in those pieces and how, I mean, also it happens, I guess, be kind of bad timing for the Buffalo Bills, how they are built for this like spread world. And all of a sudden defenses are like, well, now we kind of figured out how to play too high and defend the pass and the run at the same time now. Like, it's just like, dude, are you serious? Like the Bills, it's like you just came into the club and they're like, all right, we're shutting down at 15 minutes. You're like, dude, I just got in. I got in.
They're built for everybody playing the Seahawks defense and cover 3-1, man 3. And they're built for that. Like, oh my God, no team would be able to run it against them for 60 minutes. And now that's exactly it. It's just that they're built for a 2019 defense. And I get to going against that every week. And really not a lot of teams. I mean, you wish they played the Raiders every week with Gus Bradley running his single high stuff. I mean, ask the Chiefs. That was the best, feel good moment they've had this year.
God, just the best
it's the best mouthwash you can get. And
playing the Raiders is a nice way to correct for things.
Right. And that's the thing is that defenses have struck back hard and I think a lot of people thought it'd be like an easier transition, including myself, where it was like, okay, defenses have caught on a little bit and then next year we'll see. But man, defense has swung back way hard. And I mean, everyone's got speed now. Everyone has even if they're not the best of the best, they have a multitude of pass rushers that they have an identity to. They're bringing blitzes. They have simulated pressures where they can run too high behind it. I mean, that's what the Steelers did to them, the Bills week 1. They're rushing 4, still running too high, but they made the look hard on Josh Allen where he had a double clutch stuff. And then it's like, oh, I got to work from the pocket. And then you got guys bearing down on you. That's when Melvin Ingram was still with the Steelers. So that's kind of what's kind of happened is there's just these defenses have figured out an answer for what the offenses were doing. And I think offenses were like, and it's not just the Bills. I mean, Chiefs especially, but a lot of teams, not everyone could do what the Bucs do passing the ball. They don't have that offensive line with Tom Brady and all those receivers and the tight ends be able to push the ball time after time after time. And I think that's what an answer. And I think it's going to be really interesting next year, which is going to be real fun because I think now they're going to have to go back to the college ranks and go like, okay, we can't run RPOs. We can't do quick game because everyone's rallying and tackling on us. Our offensive line can't go 5-man for 25 snaps anymore. Okay, what do we do? So hopefully you get some blocking tight ends and hopefully, you get some guys that can, win on these over routes and win on these different types of routes than they are expected to do. Defense has swung back. The Empire struck back. Like that's what happened.
Nice. And they adjusted. And now I'm wondering like long-term, because football is like cyclical and you get, with it being a copycat league. And that's why you have to adjust and you get adjustments to the adjustments and eventually like things come back full circle. And now we're seeing like two of the hottest teams in the NFL with the 49ers and the Colts that are like, no, we're just going to go big and just gap runs all day and maybe a little zone. But like this league that has been a zone dominant run league for so long. I've mentioned it multiple times. I don't have it in front of me. I believe last year there were like over 9,000 zone runs and then like just above 3,000 gap. Like it's a zone league and it works well with the passing game and everybody's trying to go spread. And now you've got these two powerful offenses all of a sudden because they're running the ball and teams aren't built to go against that. Teams aren't built to like two gap anymore. Everybody's out there to one gap and penetrate and be aggressive, and you penetrate and you're aggressive. And then all of a sudden Jack Doyle cracks you and your gap is wide open and Jonathan Taylor takes off. And I'm very interested to see how is the nature of the running game starting to creep back in, because with how defenses have adjusted, our offense is trying to maybe like anticipate. Our team's going to see that and be like, nope, let's jump ahead again of defenses. Let's start to circle back and run the ball a little bit more, because now defense, this nonstop layer of like chess matching and trying to be like, okay, it's a spread league, so here's what defenses do. No, screw that. We're not going to be spread anymore. Let's run the ball because look what these teams did. Let's be the Colts. Like, it's so intriguing. And
it is. I right away at the beginning of the year, I was like, man, there's so much weak side zone, and you can't. So certain runs are run it runs where it's like no matter what the front is, no matter what the defense shows you, you can run it. Outside zone's one, pin pull's another. Pin pull's just harder because you have guys pulling, so more bad stuff can happen. Power, you can't really do that. Single back power has to be a perfect look. Duo is more of a run it run, but it's like you have to be in certain formations to run it. But weak side zone is not a run it run. The safety has to be back, and you can't have a loaded box against weak side zone. It's just impossible to block. There, you have a -1 already, and then you get -2 on it. And also, I saw more and more weak side zone. The Colts were hitting the Bills with it because Bills are too high. And so they're hitting that, and it was just like. For me, it's like, oh, it's 2009 Big Ten football all over again. That's kind of that's what it feels like. And because all those quarters and late rotation and all that. And when you're taking the safety out of the run fit, you're making different runs are now the answers, because it's like, well, I can't go outside zone here because that safety is going to fly down on the outside and turn everything back in, and it turns into a 3-yard gain. All right, weak side zone is the answer there, yada, yada, yada. Or we motion in a receiver in to create a new formation. And just like you said, it's funny how it is. It's time is a flat circle. Like, I mean, seriously, it's just like now we're getting back to basically 2009 offenses. Passing games have evolved, but I think more in just the run game, the run answers, when everyone was more in. I mean, that was more Tampa 2, where a lot of Bears and Bucks were running, but that was more around the league. Now it's more just like, like I said, it's more like that Big Ten football where it's like now it's going to be a lot more 3-by-1, I think, because the defense wants to stay even. You want to make them uneven. And that's how you attack it. And I think what happened for years now is they were going 2-by-2 because defenses were in single high. So it's like, I know, I don't know what the answer is. Thank God I don't have the game script for anybody anymore, but it's like, it's kind of cool watching different teams try and tweak what they're doing and finding the different stuff. Like, because every offense, every play, or most plays have answers to whatever coverage you run. But it's more like what you emphasize. It's like, well, now you're going to see more backside digs. Now you're going to see we're seeing all these over routes because that's what was killing cover 3. And now defenses have the late rotation where they catch that. So that's why you're seeing so much more sail routes and everything. But it makes offenses have to be like Phillip Rivers, basically. They have to be efficient. They have to once in a while take a shot, but they're going to have to nickel and dime you as opposed to like getting these big chunks. And and you can see a lot of offenses where like, I don't want to do that. No, I like my over routes.
The Bills are like that. They're like, we don't want a death by 1,000 cuts. We want to chop the head off right away and go for it. Like making teams patient like that is tough. And I love the 3-by-1 comment you had there too. And I think there's, I mean, I love football as a whole. My preference is the defensive side of the ball. And I just love how like we've seen such a change in, I always treat cover 4 and quarters, even though they're kind of like the same. I always treat them like differently because of how I learned it and played it and was taught. Like I treat like quarters as more like match coverage. And so like you've got like solo and special and different rules for how you got the 3-by-1 over here. And okay, are we man up?
And I'm an offensive guy, so I bucket everything. So it's just like, oh, this. Yeah, I know. So it's always, I love hearing the defense of like why they do certain things. So because it's just like, okay, that makes sense. All right, this is how I beat it. Because it's just, that's the ebb and flow of it.
And that's like that's the ebb and flow, and that's the chess match of being like, because Brian Dable said it in the offseason of like, if an offense executes, they can't be stopped because they know what they're going to do. The defense is, no matter what, the defense is reactionary because they don't know like what's coming. And that chess match of you being like on defense, okay, we think we know what's coming and this is what we can do to beat it. That is happening all the time. And if you don't, to bring it all full circle to how this first, piece of the show started, if you don't have things you're pivoting to, if you're always going rock, defenses can be like, well, I mean, they're just doing rock. Yeah. So I guess let's throw paper because paper beats it. And you're if you continue to throw rock, you're done. And what defenses have been doing this year to the Bills, as we start to move on to our next topic here, as we talked about, too high and going with like lighter boxes and making the Bills have to nickel and dime them. The Patriots did not do that in that first week, in that Monday Night Football game a couple weeks. So granted, the weather and variables and all that kind of stuff, and there's all this weirdness to go over, but just like some numbers for it. So 91% of the snaps, this is decently regular for New England though anyway, 91% of the snaps, they had 5 or more defensive backs in there. They ran a light box against the Bills 77% of the time. 65% of the time, they were in one high shell pre-snap. 86% of the time, they were in single high coverage post-snap. Just it changes for them in terms of how they normally, or I'm sorry, not too much like of a change to a decent degree there. They've been running single high to a decent part of the year. They didn't play the Bills how other teams have like played the Bills. They came out and they just threw their fastball and it worked. Do you see that playing out similarly this week, or do you attribute a lot of what the Patriots did defensively against the Bills in that first meeting to the weather and the wind and everything that was going on that Monday night?
Yeah, it felt like to me that they were playing tight, like real. I don't know. Obviously, it's just the weather. We know you can't push the ball, so you're going to see a little difference. My thinking, what Belichick can do and that defense can do is they can crank the dial in so many different directions. Like they can go, hey, we're going to go heavy man, or we can just go drop 8, cover 2.
Yeah.
Like they crank it to one direction real hard against teams. And like, even when they played the Cowboys earlier this year, they're bringing so much pressure against the Cowboys. And I was like, whoa, okay, that came out of nowhere. Like I know that, Bill Belichick has this stuff in his back pocket, but it was crazy to see. It was like he was testing Dak. He was like, I think you're good, but let's see how good. Yeah. Oh, and Dak was like, okay. Just knifed him left and right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what speaks to Belichick as a coach, that he can do all that. And to me, I still think that in a normal weather game, because that's what I attribute to my horse racing background. My dad always took me to the track, is, it's a mutter race. That last one, it's like, okay, you take a couple notes, but you can throw out most of what happens. So that's what's so hard, is that personally, I think Belichick will go into, we're cranking up cover 2. We're cranking up. We're going to push the pocket. And then I actually do think he'll throw on some blitzes just to test that Bills offensive line, especially bad. Yeah, and you don't know how because Feliciano helps out so much as far as calls. And I know that from personal experience with John. I was with him in Oakland. And and I know he's a big, tough bruiser guy, but he's actually very heady. And he helps out Morse with the protection stuff. And I just know that just anecdotally. Nice. But you can see the difference when he's in and when he's not in. And just pointing stuff out. He might be limited as an athlete and everything, but he helps out mentally and calming him down.
Which is a huge piece of the offensive line game, that mental side and protection, like setting and front recognition in terms of who's coming. And who, I mean, we saw it happened against Carolina, it happened against Tampa, just using the 2 most recent examples. The Bills are getting beat on just simple stunts. Like the spiker was taking right guard and right tackle. And then Shaq Barrett 2 weeks ago and Brian Burns this past weekend, Reddick were both like, all right, cool. I'm just going to come free through this huge hole in this gap and get a snap.
Exactly. And trust me, Belichick sees that stuff. So they call it usually. Well, the thing with the Pats, like they'll twist some guys, but they really just like, or that one double that it's famous with Belichick runs, where they double your number one receiver and everything. Is the thinking is, we'll take away your number one weapon by doubling the number one guy, and then we'll make the other guy beat us, and we're gonna jam the shit out of him, work him. And they just push the pocket and make it tight on the quarterback. That's why against the Patriots, you see the quarterback so much hanging. It's because, and that's what they do. He knows that Josh Allen is willing to break the pocket and do damage to you outside the pocket. So it's a long-winded way of saying I don't know what he's going to do, but I could see it going so many different directions. I just think, to me, I could see him just believing in a too high world, just what he's seen on tape, pushing the pocket, dropping 8, convoluting the look a little bit for Allen, and also just once in a while testing, just kind of like a velociraptor testing the cage.
Nice.
Just nice. I know. Just
Clever
watched
girl.
it last week. Yeah, clever girl. And just testing the protection and just going like, okay, it's second and long. All right, let's bring something right here. All right, just
poking
tweaking it in there a little bit. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I could see that happening a little bit.
That's I think that's already like the advantage that it happens every week. Like, but playing Belichick is like, okay, here's what he did the first time we played him. Is he going to do that again? Does he know that we know what he did, and so he's going to do something different? Does he know what we think, and we think he knows what we think, but we don't know that he thinks that we know? Like, and you're just like, never mind, forget it. Like, we need
exactly.
a plan.
Exactly.
And you psych yourself
look
out.
Look at the Microsoft Surface. Just see what he's doing. That's exactly what it is. Yep.
Until you get to like some sort of like game on there, because like, forget the film. We just need to figure out something else.
Yeah, exactly.
And just the adjustment to what the Patriots did the first time. I'm just really, again, just to go over some of the numbers with it. So on the year, the Patriots have played with, then this connects to the whole pivot aspect and the running game for the Bills that they haven't really had too much in the threat of this year. So coming into that week 13 game, and actually just the Patriots on the year as a whole, they show a light box with a 46% usage rate. That is 30th in the NFL. So they give light box 46% of the time. Against the Bills in week 13, they were in a light box 77% of the time. On the year,
daring them.
Just so bad. This next one gets me even more. On the year, the Patriots stacked the box at 24%. That is third most in the NFL. In week 13 against the Bills, they stacked the box on 2%. Of plays. They literally were just like, you won't run it. And if you do, it won't work. So we're just going to sit and do this one thing. And even again, with like single high looks, like single high coverage on the year, 67%, single high coverage in that game against the Bills, 86%. Like, as you mentioned it, those dials, they turn certain pieces. And because they are a versatile defense, and I think that's also another piece too. A lot of people, I mean, it's unfortunate being like a Bills fan and a team and a person that covers the Bills, but a lot of people last year wanted to be like, the Pats are dead. This is like Wicked Witch of the East type stuff. The house fell on her. The feet roll back. Like, we got the shoes. It's good. But I feel like a lot of people didn't think about all the COVID opt-outs and everything. And then everybody wanted to sing and dance with like, oh my God, I can't believe they paid that for Kendrick Bourne. Oh my God, I can't believe they paid that for Gottschalk. I can't believe they paid that for Aguilar, and so on and so forth. And even people like, well, Judon's good, but he's not worth that. And that all may be true. Maybe in 2 years, they're sitting in cap hell and it's like, oh my God, we got to make these cuts. But at the end of the day, in a vacuum of 1 year with the COVID opt-outs and what they did in free agency, they got better, significantly better. And then they added a quarterback who people, you know, just because we're talking about the Pats a little bit, we'll talk about Mac Jones here. They added a quarterback who people were like high and low on. A lot of people, I think, were obviously enamored with Trevor Lawrence. I know you are. I'm sorry, we're not talking about Trevor Lawrence and the Jags on this one. I know you would really enjoy that.
I was pent up with my Jags and Trevor Lawrence talk for weeks, and then I'm done with it now. It's like everyone's like, hey, you actually watched that crap, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah. And then it's like, okay, can you come on and talk about it? And it's like, so I'm good not talking about it for another week.
You did have one of the best like GIF or tweets ever when somebody said something about you being excited to like talk about Trevor Lawrence, and you tweeted the GIF of Seth Rollins with the cash in at WrestleMania, like running. That was just awesome because that was spot on. Like, you know, some good. That was a strong Twitter game from you in that moment.
Appreciate it.
No doubt. With Mac Jones, so people love Trevor Lawrence and they love Fields, and even like Trey Lance, you know, and everybody talking about his numbers and what he did in college, and he's more exciting. And then Mac Jones is just kind of like, I don't know, people, I do know people wanted to, oh no, he's not that impressive, and look who he had with him at Alabama, and it's not a big deal, and he falls to the Pats. And I've liked what they've done with him this year, like little by little, just putting more things onto his plate as the week progresses. But we've reached this point with Mac Jones where, and I blame the national media, he wins a little bit. And then the national media like, oh my God, this guy's Tom Brady. It's going to be amazing. God. So the national media wants to play that story, which makes everyone outside of New England hate Mac Jones.
Yep.
So it's just nothing but the opposite ends of the extreme. People are going to think he's the second coming. Everybody else wants him to fail. So when he does good, he's the second coming and it's amazing. When he does bad, like has some bad moments against the Colts, it's nothing but laugh out loud Mac Jones. He's terrible. Ha ha. Like, what a joke. I can't believe this guy's a quarterback. He can't throw, blah, blah, blah. With Mac Jones, how much do you believe in him at this point in terms of where he is, what kind of quarterback he is for the New England Patriots?
It's the thing with him is, God, I don't mean to sound arrogant here. This is kind of what I expected out of him. Okay. Like, it was like, I knew he would kind of hit the ground running. Like, the thing was with that offense they ran at Alabama, it was so much more RPO heavy. Like, we just picture Alabama basically being like Wisconsin on offense. It's like, oh, it's a pro style system. And it's like, no. Yeah. It is cranked up RPOs down the field and just, I mean, every single snap
with ridiculous talent on the line and running backs and receivers and
receivers. Yeah. I mean, just so much speed coming at you. And when they would run that stuff, even when I first watched him, first game I watched him, I was like, okay, whatever. He probably had a great system around him. Look at this bad body guy, all this. And I actually was like, the more I watched him, I was like, okay, I get it. I get why people like this because he's super accurate. His eyes were always going to the right spot. It's an RPO offense, but it was like he was doing the right things constantly.
Yeah.
And he still had to operate fast. But my comparison to him then, and still I still feel this way, is Chad Pennington. It's okay. He's not going to terrify you, but it's like he's always going to go to the right spot. He's going to never miss a throw. I mean, once in a while he does, but it's just like it feels like he never misses a throw.
Yeah.
Super accurate, but it's really his upside is going to be based on what's around him as opposed to, and I understood and that's going to be annoying for Bills fans because it's like he kind of has that face that's almost punchable. Like,
it's super punchable.
Oh, I know. And I don't know. I actually, I've liked him more as I've kind of like seen how he acted. Like one time Josh McDaniels had to calm him down because McDaniels, they burned a timeout and you can read his lips. He's like, I was about to effing snap the ball. And McDaniels like, yeah, as a rookie. And I was like, oh, buddy. And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. I like that a little bit. That's not what I expected on McCorkle. But it is...
Nice real name drop right there.
That's what it is. That's what he is.
So bad.
But it's I think that's what the Chad Pennington comparison. It's a compliment and it's a little bit of a slight. Is that his upside? This is what he's going to be. Like, I think he's already super smart. He's super accurate. But then there's a reason they only threw the ball 3 times in that wind. Is because his arm strength isn't that great. It isn't. It's not going to really improve unless he gets on the TB12 program and turns 42 years old and his arm strength improves.
That doesn't make sense. Like, I don't get it. Like, everyone else is wearing down and he's getting stronger. He's going he reaches like Super Saiyan levels like 2 and 3 every other year, but I don't get it.
It's unbelievable. It's so annoying.
I hate it.
Like, I know.
My life has been ruined by this man.
I know. It's like, look human.
Right? Just be a normal guy.
Yeah, exactly. Please. And so I think with Mac Jones is that like it's always going to be, he's going to be a quick operating guy, but he has to have this around him. I mean, that O-line is a good O-line. He has 2 good tight ends. Like Jonnu Smith's a little limited, but he's a good tight end. And then the receivers, they're missing maybe a speed guy, but Kendrick Bourne's a good player. I'm a huge fan, obviously. Yeah. I've talked about him way too many times on our podcast. And then Nelson Aguilar is more of a role player, but it's like everything they do makes sense. Like when you ask what is it easier, especially having the run game and everything. And it's like, yeah, I asked Mac Jones. It's nice that he can just turn around and hand the ball off when times get tough. And oh wow, it's 3rd and 3, and I just have to hit Hunter Henry on a short throw. We're good,
Keep moving to 6.
Yep, exactly. And he's just always going to be that efficient type where I think he hits his Pro Bowl. Like he can make the Pro Bowls, but it's like I don't see him as that true MVP caliber type of guy. Like, which is good, I guess, as a Bills fan. Where
yes,
him and Josh Allen could be any more opposite. Josh Allen was all traits and tools and all that, and then grew into this, awesome player.
Yeah.
Mac Jones hits the ground running, but then it's like maybe he gets a little bump, and then that's kind of what he's going to hold
ceiling
steady
is limited. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's I'm sure Belichick loves it. McDaniels loves it. It's like, hey, this dude's competitive and he's always going to go with the right spot with the ball. Like that's his best trait. And also I think it's just his biggest limitation is that he knows what he is. And yeah, like they can win with that if they have a good team around them, but there's gonna be times like maybe if they have a dip in personnel, it's like go make us a play, Mac. And then it's like, he's tough, but it's like, it's not Fields or Lawrence or Josh Allen or Kyler or those guys that can truly create these explosive plays.
Yeah, you have to have that supporting cast around you and able to be able to kind of like continue that play. And, Bills fans all like to give Mac Jones a lot of flack. And I mean, his name is McCorkle, so I understand. But with, taking a look at his depth in terms of like passes and what he does. So 47% of these numbers were not shocking to me with how the Bills have been played this year, but he and Allen aren't like crazy different with their levels in which they've thrown. So Mac Jones, the short area, so 0 to 9 yards, 47.1% of his attempts have come there. For Josh, it's 42.6, not crazy off. The medium area, the intermediate, 10 to 19. For Mac Jones, 21.2%. Josh, 22.9. The deep ball, this is Mac's obvious low. Yeah, you snickered already as soon as I said deep ball. So throws of 20 yards or more. Only 11% of Mac Jones' attempts have come deep. 20 or more. He's only got a 36.2 completion percent there. For reference, Josh Allen's is 46.9 in those 20 plus. And this is just a one-off because I thought it was weird. Matt Ryan's adjusted completion percentage here is 61.1 on deep balls, and it's first. I just don't get the Falcons sometimes. Like,
no, they're the weirdest team.
Right? So one week you're like, oh my God, they're a dumpster fire. And then the next week they play really good ball on both sides. And you're just like, what is, I don't understand them as a team. They're the weirdest thing. But with how the Patriots offense operates, with what Mac Jones is capable of and some of the numbers that, mentioned here, how do you make him a vulnerability if you are an opposing defense?
Well, if you can get pressure on him, of course, because he's not going to his pocket movement's great, but it's not, he's not going to bounce out of it and punish you. Like you play man against Josh Allen and you let him break contain. It's like, it's an explosive play. Like that's he's playing with fire when you play a guy like Josh Allen. Getting that pressure on him, like what you can say about a lot of quarterbacks, but also just, playing tight coverage, making them drive the ball, which is actually what the Bills do pretty well. Like the Bills defense, what you're getting. And I've talked about this on the pod a couple of times, is playing the McDermott or Leslie Frazier defense. Is that like, I know exactly what coverage you're in and I still can't execute because you have to be they make you be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's like, yes, he's accurate. Yes, he's on time. Yes, he goes right place, but make him make every single throw. Make him do that. Take away the run game and make it be 3rd and 9. Take away that 1st and 2nd down advantage that they have. I think that's really, that's a lot of quarterbacks, but that's especially with him, is because you can play tight with the quarters coverage. Your safeties could be at 10 to 12 yards because you don't have to worry about maybe him hitting the post unless it's wide open. And making those intermediate throws not happen. And I think that's what the Bills actually played that pretty well against a lot of offenses in the league. And that's especially against Mac Jones, because he just doesn't, he's super accurate, super on time, but he just doesn't have that extra crank up when he has to drive that ball in. He had a nice Colts, though, that touchdown in the red zone. He did just drive that in there. But again, he's perfectly on time.
Yeah.
If he has to bounce that extra step, like Josh Allen can bounce that extra step and then rifle it in, Mac can't. It's like he'll check it down, and which is good. He knows what he is, but it's like you have to make him do that over and over and over, and not let him like get into that rhythm that he likes to be in.
And that didn't happen the first time the Bills played New England. As you mentioned, they only threw the ball 3 times. That Pat's run game just really ate the Bills up. And the biggest thing that hit me for that game was, Brian Baldinger did a really great breakdown of how the Pats just ran G lead, like left and right over and over again. It was literally like the same play, just flipped nonstop. It was really heartbreaking to watch as a Bills fan. I was at that game and it was so cold.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. And the environment going into it was sweet. It was cold. It was snowy. It's a prime. I've been to like 20 Bills games, but I'd never been to a primetime one.
You'll never forget it either. Nope. It's like no one will. Like everyone's gonna remember that game.
Yeah, and the whole time as the Bills were like losing, I knew how little they'd passed, and I was just sitting there. I was just like, "Don't lose to a team that's gonna pass under 5 times. Do not do that." And it happened. And the Pats on the year, they are second in terms of gap run usage rate. So they've run gap runs on 50% of their plays, so at 195. So they're second in the league with that, which is nice for them. And again, a lot of teams are so zone heavy now, but they've actually run more gap than zone, 50% gap run, 42% zone. But in that game against the Bills, 74% gap run. They just gouged the Bills over and over again. And how much of a mismatch is that Pats run game for the Bills run D? Because not to give the Bills a pass, I also don't think the Bills' run defense was as bad as people wanted to make it out to be. It was really just one big run. They forced like 5 3-and-outs, multiple drives where they held the Pats under 6 yards. But with the type of defense the Bills is, I don't know, grammar, whatever. The Bills are a smaller, faster defense. They're a one-gap penetrating defense, right? They're very much built to defend Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That's what they are built to fight. They are not built to fight the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots of the world, who've got big, physical offensive lines that are also talented, who want to run gap and move you out of the way and or take advantage of your aggressiveness and penetration into the gaps. So how much of a mismatch is it? And because again, I feel like people also don't understand, as I get to this question is now that I've tried to ask it for the second time, but I keep having thoughts that go in my brain. I feel like people don't understand how hard it is to defend the run. People just think like, we'll just throw another safety in the box. We'll take out your nickel corner and go 3 linebackers. Like, people don't understand the nature of like gap exchanges and how hard that is to consistently execute a gap exchange, let alone when teams are pulling guys and they're moving a gap from the right side to the left side and creating a numbers advantage on that. And they're rearranging. Being sound in your gap fits, especially as a one gap defense like the Bills are, that's a hard thing to do. So all that being said, how much of a mismatch is, for the third time that I've asked this now, how much of a mismatch is it, this Pats running game versus this Bills run defense?
First off, what the Patriots have is a willingness to run.
Yes, very much so.
If you notice, a lot of offensive coordinators get head jobs lately, especially, and that's because they read the papers too. They want to make sure they get those stats up there. Josh McDaniels probably has the keys to the place, so he's like, yeah, okay, I can still pound this rock, and so that right then and there is already an advantage that he doesn't care about the press clippings about that stuff. And I know that sounds like an anecdotal thing, like a joke, but it's serious. I mean, it's serious. There's a lot of guys that are like, well, we got to start cranking the ball up. Like, they're onto us. We got to do this.
Yep.
Also, the Bills, it's kind of old school in a little bit of ways. Not really old school, but just unique in these times is that they have so many off-ball linebackers. Like, they don't like having a guy walked up and like a Sam on the ball. They like having 4 down and then everyone behind it.
And a light box behind it, usually just the 2. Their base is nickel. They're in it all the
time.
Big
nickel. Yep, exactly. So it's funny. Offensively and defensively, they're built for what they thought the trends of the league were going. And now it's like, shit.
Just got to the club and thought you were going to have a great night, and it's closing in 15 minutes.
Yep. And it speaks to their safeties too, that they can do the big nickel stuff. And that I love watching the Bills defense because it's just, they're so smart. It's just so many good, smart players that they're always around the ball. They make it hard on an offense, and it's really cool to watch. It's not fancy, but it's good, sound defense. I've compared it to like when they were rolling the Cowboys run game a little bit, where it was just like, we know what's coming, but they're still going to do it to you. They've dropped off a little bit, but I'm telling you, this is like third time I've said this week. They're about to go supernova on somebody, and I'm just telling you.
Oh yeah, they'll have that like 55-point outbreak. They're gonna be like, oh, there it is.
When CD Lamb is not going to drop the ball 3 times in the sun again. Like, 2 of them would have been touchdowns, like, or catch and run. So like it's But anyways, I just think that, so I alluded to before, was that you see more weak side zone. You see more power now because the boxes are lighter. You don't have to have that +1 or that extra guy, the extra blocker in there, or, they don't have that safety down and all that stuff. And really, the Bills know what they are at this point. They only run a couple coverages. They really lean into them. They're not going to change now. They're not all of a sudden going to go like, hey, we're going to have the Sam linebacker. We're not going to go true 4-3 and have the Sam up there.
And they also can't. They're not built as a roster for that. Like, who's going to come up and play that Sam? Who's going to play an under and play a 5-down line? Like,
they Milano at 2, who's playing fantastic this year, but he's 35. Like, he isn't going to be on the ball. That's just how they're built. So that's what the Patriots know. That the Patriots can get to a lot of different runs. Like, I know you said, like, that's actually a great stat with how much they run gap, but they'll run trap, they'll run G pull, they'll run zone, they'll run
so
draw.
Versatile in their like run scheme. Like, it's genuinely impressive.
Yep. It's whatever front. That's why, especially against the Bills, is that like, hey, you're going to be off ball. Okay, we're going to run gap because we can do it against your front. And then maybe against a different team, that maybe the Cowboys, where they're more mugged up and stuff, that they're like, okay, we're going to run more true pin pull or outside zone, more type plays, lead zone. So I just think that's what it is. It's just that it's styles make fights kind of thing, where it's that this is what the Bills like to run. So the Patriots are like, okay, we're going to crank up our gap stuff. And so that's probably why you're going to see more of it. That's just what they are at this point. It's just so that's what's so fun about football too, is that not only it's like, okay, all this sounds good on a whiteboard, on a chalkboard and all that, but it's like you still have to execute. And that's why, running the ball it's so, especially on defense. And that's when you just pass. It turns into ISO ball. It turns into, hey, the quarterback's got to be right and the receiver's got to win and block for 2 seconds. Like that when you do that over and over, when you run the ball, then it's, if one guy makes a mistake, ask a team that's to defend the triple option. One guy misses a tackle, one guy doesn't have their gap. Boom, it's a huge play on you. Boom, it's another 7 yards. And it's like, yeah, okay, that 7 yards feels different than when you just hit like a slant for 7 yards. Because then like a couple guys go, well, I won there on defense. They go, well, I won my rep. Like, but all of a sudden it's like you're getting pounded on the rock and 2 guys miss their gap, and it's like, oof, then it's a huge play. And it just feels different.
There's something I love that you said that. There's something so much different about like getting passed on versus getting run on. I feel like when you get run on, it's like your soul is being taken out of you. It's like someone's like just punching you in the face repeatedly and you can't do anything about it. No. And it's just such a helpless feeling to just get grinded like that. And that's how I felt in that Bills Colts game. And it's funny you say like I used that example earlier, but the idea of like one person being out of position, the Bills weren't horrible in their fits against the Colts, but Ed Oliver would come screaming upfield and Jack Doyle just, okay, cool, I'm just going to move you out of the way. And Jonathan Taylor threw for an easy like 15. And then if you have another guy who's not in his gap or not exactly not perfect, you're going to get gouged even more. And that's what happened like with the first Bills Pats game. They were decent on a large amount of their run fits, but then the touchdown run for Damian Harris, right? Edmonds comes over. Micah Hyde goes too wide. He doesn't fill his gap behind Edmonds. Dodson doesn't scrape. Boom. And Harris doesn't even make a hard cut. He kind of is just like, oh man, this is open, right? Like a little, if you're doing the dots, that's a nice little like rounded bend. And then he goes like, and he just cuts back because they're not sound. And I feel like people took that and saw the rushing stats and the 3 passes and were like, well, they just got destroyed in the run game. No. And it wasn't that. They gave up several big runs. But again, that's going to happen against that style of offense and when you have that style of defense, because you have to be so gap sound at all times. And especially with the Bills, like you mentioned, they're not going to come out and be like, all right, cool, we're gapping out. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to load the line and load the box. We're going to gap out. They're not going to do that.
We're not running bare fronts every down. No. That's not what they do. That's just, that might be a change up, but it's not what they lean into.
No, they're not even going to change. And even if like the tight front becomes like amazing, like people are talking about, they're not all of a sudden going to be like, cool, we're running tight front. They're like, nope, we're just going to keep running, 4-3 over and we're just going to keep playing 2 linebackers. That's who we are. That's what we do. And, it's just, I'm replaying the game in my head and it's so frustrating. We got a couple. Are you okay to finish these last 2 points?
Yeah. Sure, I got about like 7-8 minutes.
Cool. We'll go fast. And the last one is just that quick question. And this first one, you mentioned earlier when we talked about some RPO stuff. I've talked a lot on the show about the Bills' usage of RPOs this year and how it's taking the ball out of Josh's hands because defenses are giving him looks that are like, all right, cool, just run it. Like where, if the RPO is reading that second level defender, it's almost like defenses are like, whatever you do, don't bite on it. Just sit there and sink, make him hand the ball off. And the Bills RPO usage for 2021 this year, they're at a usage of 18%. They've run 165 RPOs. Last year in all of 2020, they had a 9% usage rate. They ran 97 RPOs. So they're already way, 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 way over. And in the red zone, where despite the fact that they're 4th in offensive DVOA in the red zone, they've been inefficient. They're at a 60% touchdown percentage. Last year in the red zone, they only used RPOs 8% of the time. This year, they're using RPOs in the red zone 20% of the time.
And I don't like RPOs in the red zone.
No, me neither.
As a philosophy.
And especially when you have an offensive line that is like middling and sometimes vulnerable and deficient, like you kind of just want to keep it simple and allow them just to do one thing and not kind of put them in this no man's land type of thing. So real quick, give your thoughts on RPOs and the pros and cons they can prevent for the offense that's running them and how the defense can kind of dictate what you do, which isn't really ideal.
Yeah, it limits your verticality. And I think that's what a lot of offenses got into this year is that they were like, oh, we can't lean into these little these guys aren't going to miss tackles, and the safeties are flying down. Like safety play has been tremendous throughout the league this year, and it's been really cool. That's become like one of the prime positions to have guys. Bills fans know you guys got a couple of them, but it's those guys have to be smart, fast, physical. And with the uptick in those guys, it's okay. We're going to let you try and hit slants over and over and over. We might get the tip ball. The linebacker who just saw 3 slants get hit on him, now he's flying out and tipping it, because pre-snap, it was a good look for the offense to throw it, but then post-snap, it's adjusting off of it.
Yep.
And I think that's, I've never liked the RPOs in the red zone. It's just like, because it's just like, do one thing and just, either run or pass and just go from there. You get into this no man's land. And again, that's a tight space, so safeties can come up.
Field. Yep, the windows are squeezed even tighter, and especially against a team like the Bills where they're playing too high and playing more zone.
Yep,
everything is condensed and it's harder as is.
And if you run like Bills run it a little bit, Chiefs love to run it. They run the stick RPO, and where they have the tight end. It's Knox all the time running it. Well, flat and stick routes a little quick out, and they run that, and it's fine sprinkling it in. And even like the Colts run it a little bit too. Like the Colts against the Bucks, they started running it. They hit the stick a couple times, and it was a good run look. It could have been. They hit stick a couple times, 7 yards, 8 yards, cool. But then all of a sudden the Bucks guys in the fourth quarter flew back and almost picked one off. And it was like, because they play defense too. They get paid money to do this. Yes, they're also professionals. They adjust as well. So when you're just doing that all the time, the tight end's right here, he ain't blocking me. That DN knows he can fly down the line. They can so they can cover the pass look, and then now the run looks shit because now they're just teeing off on you. They're running it from the backside. The linebacker that doesn't have to worry about the stick now because the guy's getting covered. He can flow into the run gap. It's like nothing that's supposed to be created isn't a bind anymore because it's becoming rock. It's now it's as bad as a rock paper. Now it's just okay. Well, you're going to do this if we show this. All right. Well, we know that if we run single high behind it, they're going to do this. Boom. You're just taking those options away.
The offense could run rock, paper, scissors, but we can give you a look to make you run rock, and now we know that rock is coming.
Correct. And that's exactly what happens. That's the limitations of that. And just how I started this point is just the limitations of the verticalness. Like when you're as a safety, as a DB, even a linebacker, knowing that I don't have to worry about anything behind me. Okay, I can keep everything in front of me. Like they can play very, very fast and come down. And that's why I think a lot of offenses this year feel so tight. It's like offenses haven't figured out, let's get to 7-step drop back concept. So let's work these overs and posts. They don't have really the team that's done it the best has been the Rams. But they even faced a limitation because they try to crank it up too much going into that and getting into more spread looks.
We're all about grammar here tonight.
Oh my God. Terrible. My sister was an English major. That's my excuse. I was more the math guy. And is that getting into those looks and be able to be vertical out of them. And I think that's where it's kind of start leaning towards, but I don't think teams have figured it out. So they're staying this 3 and 5 step drop back world, or if they want to attack down the field, they go play action. But we know with the Bills, when they go into heavy play action, it's like, what's happening. Cause it's like under center, different formation than you see from the rest of the game. It's like, okay, alarm bells, like, okay, like they scout tape too. They know, hey, okay, they're in this look. They only run 2 things. All right, let's bail. I'm not biting up on this fake. So that's kind of what you get into. You become very predictable, even though you're trying to put defenses in a bind.
Last question, 1 minute answer for you quick. What's the biggest or most important, whether it's a matchup or factor, anything like that? What is your most important thing that will decide this Bills-Patriots game?
The line. It's Josh Allen's Josh Allen. So I originally my first answer, because you do a great job prepping, so it's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Is that Josh Allen versus defense on first and second down, and I think that's the one thing. I think third down is just he creates enough that it's not really a key thing. It is, but it isn't. But I really think how this offensive line holds up just throughout 60 minutes, and in catching those, I think when he brings the blitzes and not letting those just be big plays for the defense. I think that's just the huge thing. I think this Bills defense is going to match up well against what the Patriots offense wants to do. They're going to take some licks in the run game just because of how they are structured. They're going to it's going to be frustrating on a couple drives, but I think passing game wise, they're actually built pretty well for what the Patriots like to do on offense passing wise. It's just we didn't get to see it last game.
Yeah.
Because they only threw it 3 times. And it was a play action. I think it was 2 play actions and a screen. It was like, it wasn't even true drop back passing. So I think that on that side of the ball, it's an okay matchup, but I really do think it's going to be one in the trenches with the Bills offense, just sorting it out and leaning into, or not leaning into, but cleaning up and not letting any of those free runners happen. That's happened the last couple of weeks.
So many conversations that I've had on this show in the episodes this year and throughout the network on the post-game show and everything, it somehow always comes back to the offensive line. And here we are again, right? With another it's funny how that always works.
I know. And this is throwback from last year, but the Sewell, Jamar Chase arguments for stuff. And as good as, as Jamar Chase has been as a rookie, it's like, I think they really, I saw someone tweet this week. They're like, wow, they have these talented receivers and Burrow has been playing well, and it's like, man, why don't they pass the ball more? It's like, because they can't protect.
Yeah, he's dying back there.
He's under heat every snap. It's like, yeah, and I know, I get it. It's like a couple times you can hit those stuff, but it's like every time they pass the ball, you can tell Burrow's like, all right, well, scramble. Like I have to get going. Yeah, and it's like it all starts up front. It's those guys play every single snap. A receiver can rotate in and out. Like those guys have to be effective.
Especially with how Burrow went down last year, you would think like, well, okay, let's maybe overcompensate. And I get Jamar Chase is sexier and he was killing it earlier in the year, but yeah, there's something to be said for that trench play.
Yeah, 1 catch for 3 yards last week, so and that's the thing was they have T. Higgins, who's a great player, and Tyler Boyd's a really nice player. Yeah, I know. So I was like, it didn't feel like a need. Jamar Chase is a good player, don't get me wrong, but it's like, I don't know. That's a whole philosophical discussion. But yeah, it always starts up front. Those guys affect more plays. They just do for an offense.
Yeah, and the Bills' O-line has been inconsistent and at best this year and middling, and those are not what you have been this episode. You have been fantastic as always. I know we had some technical difficulties to start, which you were a champ pulling through, and that's why we started a bit late. We went over the time like we did last time, but again, you were a champ. The conversation is awesome. I appreciate you. You are tremendous. And just in case people don't know, in case they live under a rock, tell them who you are, what you do, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter mostly, Nate_Tice. I mostly do X's and O's breakdowns, a couple snarky tweets, a lot of memes lately, as I try to not to get into too many over the top discussions. But right now I'm focusing a lot on college draft prospects, but still, you'll find a lot of my as I watch film, I'll try to put them on the timeline. You hear me on the Athletic Football Show mainly. It's a Sunday night. We'll be live, and then usually you can find all your podcast stuff Monday mornings. Also, we do a show on Fridays. Last 15-20 minutes, we'll do a gambling segment with Shil Kapadia, which is a lot of fun. I also do Twitch streams, twitch.com/Nate_Tice. I haven't done any this week. I probably won't do any until next week. And then also you'll find me on my Substack, The Silent Count, which is play on offensive stuff. But yeah, I'm all over the place. Yeah, but Nate_Tice is where you can find me. I couldn't get Nate Tice for whatever reason when I first made Twitter. And I think that guy's a sports fan too. And he'll just like have tweets. And I could tell a couple of people thought it was me. I'm like, no, I'm not like some random Packers fan. I'm like,
there's an underscore there.
There's an underscore there. But yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
No, yeah. You are one of the best in the biz. And anytime that I can chat with you and have you on is truly a blessing. And yeah, thank you so much for working through the technical difficulties and being able to find the time in your busy freelancing schedule. And, in the holiday week, as you mentioned, you're about to go travel. So safe travel to you and yours and Merry Christmas. Yeah, hell yeah. And, hope to see you around again. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
I'll see you in the DMs, but Merry Christmas, man. This is awesome.
Merry Christmas, Nate. Later, man. Oh, boy. Always brings such a smile to my face to have Mr. Nate Tice on the show. Genuinely, and now I don't really have to say it anymore because, he's not on the show, but he is genuinely one of the absolute best in the business when it comes to anything X's and O's. And I've said it before, I know football pretty well. I study it. I've played it, and anything I don't know or haven't experienced, I learn as best I can, and I study in order to be able to master it and go forward. And he is somebody who I look to for, just how to break things down and understand the game better. He's a tremendous follow, a tremendous read, both on the Athletic, his Twitter account, the breakdowns, anything and everything. Truly and genuinely one of the best in the business. If you like football, which I'm assuming everybody here does, he's an absolute must follow and a must, subscriber to his Substack and all that. Yeah, Steven said there, that guy does know his shizer right there. Yeah, well done. He's phenomenal, and yeah, go give him a follow. Check him out. His breakdowns are great, and his knowledge of the game is tremendous. And He crushed it for this one. This Bills game is so important for the Bills, for the Patriots. For if the Patriots win, they increase their odds of, not only winning the division, which is what almost be pretty much guaranteed, but their ability to lock up the number one seed in the AFC and get that bye week. And if the Bills lose, their playoff odds drop even further. If the Bills lose this game, so if the Bills win, their odds of making the playoffs are 96%. If they lose this game, their odds of making the playoffs are 52%. So I think a lot of us have been, even going back to the Tennessee game, a lot of the thought for Bills fans was, okay, well, how can we make up ground on the one seed? And how can we get the one seed? And how can we get home field advantage? And if the Bills lose this game, all of a sudden you're looking at a scenario where maybe the Bills don't make the playoffs. Like 52%, I still think they make it. And I know what the number is, but there's a scenario where if the Bills lose this game, potentially they don't make the playoffs. And I loved everything that Nate said on this episode and what he really wrapped up with at the end in terms of what will decide this game, which has been something we've talked about all year. The play of the Bills' offensive line. It always comes back to the lines at some point. To play in the trenches, teams have to be built from inside out, regardless of who that team is. He mentioned it a couple times with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's always had good offensive lines. Playing in New England, he had good guys up front. He had arguably the best offensive line coach of all time, and Dante Scarnecchia coaching those groups. And then he goes to Tampa. They've got studs up there. Wirfs is so good, and he's young. Marpet is good, and Jensen is good, and Kappa, I believe, is the other guard, is somebody who can roll. Like, they've got a good squad up front. And then obviously on the other side of the ball, we know what their defensive line can do. So I think he nailed it, the trench warfare that's going to happen in this game between these two teams. And given what the Bills can do defensively, and as Devin says here, yeah, oh my God, it would suck if they don't make the playoffs. Yeah, if the Bills don't make the playoffs, it would be genuinely awful. That would be one of the biggest letdowns of my tenure as a Bills fan. And I experienced the Music City Miracle. So I've been through a lot. But yeah, the Bills secondary and defense from a passing perspective, I think matches up well with the Pats' weaponry, knock on wood. But it's going to come down for the Bills defense. Can they stop the run? How efficient can they be in it? Do they let up at all? Do they give up any big plays? Do they get out-gapped? Do they miss an assignment? And do they make themselves vulnerable like they did in the first game? And then on the other side of the ball, can they protect Josh? I love what Nate said and it was so spot on. Like, Belichick he's going to poke and prod. He's going to test. Okay, let's poke over here. No, that was okay. Let's poke over here. Let's poke. Okay, that's the one. Let's keep drilling that. So it's just a matter of seeing how the Bills adjust, how New England adjusts. We went over several of the metrics in this game in terms of what the Pats did the first time the Bills played them versus what they normally do on the year in terms of their stack boxes versus light boxes and middle of the field covered coverages. They adjusted. They went and said, okay, like Nate mentioned, what they can do with those dials, and they ratcheted those dials up and they turned things up and they were able to get a win. This game is absolutely huge in every sense of the word. I'm very glad that I had someone as tremendous as Mr. Nate Tice to ride with me on this episode of Disguise Coverage. And as we start to say our goodbyes here, I wanted to throw it up here at the beginning. You can hear in my voice, apologies if I don't sound great. I've been sick this week. It's not COVID. I tested, been negative, but I'm still just regular sick, so don't feel great whatsoever. But this episode, as always, yes, Steven, the Jurassic Park reference was elite, 1,000%. This episode of Disguise Coverage, as all episodes of Disguise Coverage are, was brought to you by One Pie Pizza. Sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese. They are phenomenal. Open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 8. They have been open on some Sundays as well due to the increase in demand in business. And they are open Monday through Saturday regularly, 11 to 8, or until sold out. They will genuinely sell out. Sorry, this grammar's been all over this episode. What I love is their limited menu. Like, they genuinely, and it's not just like a plug, like they genuinely believe in doing one thing and doing that one thing right, and that's making quality pizza and quality food, and they definitely do that. Love having them as sponsors, love having them as partners. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Their online menu is in the show notes for this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you are listening on any one of the podcasting platforms. Go check them out. They're delicious. I saw somebody at the beginning of this episode mention that they were in town for the Bills-Patriots game, and they tried One Pie Pizza. So that is awesome. I hope you loved it. I think you did from what I saw in the comment there way back in the beginning, but that's awesome. And yeah, it's going to start to wind it down. I'm throwing up the toodles, you guys. I saw a lot of comments that came through in the last several minutes or so of the show, just saying like great show and thanks. So appreciate you guys for that and riding with us live on this episode of Disguise Coverage. Even though I'm sick and powering through and don't sound great. Well, I don't really sound great in general, but yeah, while you're here, drop a like. I know it's corny, but likes go a long way in terms of helping myself and the entire channel to track and trend. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage, to Cover One. Get your notifications and your alerts, especially as this season ramps up into the playoffs. And then there's no let up here on Disguise Coverage and with Cover One as a whole, because once the season is done, you got draft prep, you got prospects, we got the NFL draft coverage, and then even before that, we've got salary cap talk and free agency. Then you've got the draft. Then we've got mini camps and training camps and all that. It never stops here on Disguise Coverage and Cover One as a whole. So please rate and review and subscribe. Drop a like. Go get yourself some one pie pizza. Go follow Nate Tice. Follow myself on Twitter at pro__ant if you'd like. That's tremendous. Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones, as always, stay safe and are doing well. I hope you guys all have a good time over the holidays. Be safe. I know all this stuff with COVID running rampant, and obviously we're going to be with family and friends and loved ones, but try and stay safe as much as possible and take care of one another. And as always, I will see you next week, hopefully after a Bills win. Take care of one another. I'll see you next week. And as always, go Bills.